It's one of the longest-running TV shows in history.
South Park is one of the greatest examples of satire of all time.
South Park definitely influenced a generation of comedians to take more risks.
I think there was no lines that they weren't afraid to cross then.
A show that thrives by being controversial.
It was a fight between the creators and the corporate overlords, the ones who were running the network and their cash cow.
Even when that means going a little too far.
There was a threat on their lives.
Pushing the envelope finally had real-world repercussions.
Flirting with cancellation.
It sort of felt like we were dropping a bomb onto culture.
Matt and Trey loved to push.
Trey was so pissed. He was like, we're done. I'm not giving them their last episode. I think the words were, them.
But no matter how many times they stir up controversy or invent ways to kill Kenny, South Park never dies.
So my name's Trey. I grew up right here in Morrison, Colorado.
I'm Matt. Hi. I grew up in Littleton, which is just over there.
Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Thousands have made a pilgrimage to the Colorado mountains to celebrate the birth of one of the most influential cartoons in history.
It's been 1/4 of 1 century since two unknown South Park, Colorado boys started a phenom.
Today, Matt and Trey are two of the wealthiest names in TV.
Bob, real quick, the deal with South Park, $900 million over the next 6 years. One of the biggest deals in this kind of TV history.
It all started 25 years earlier with some cardboard cutouts of Jesus and Santa Claus.
Matt Stone and Trey Parker entered my life the January following the famous Christmas video where Jesus and Santa Claus have a big fight.
It is the most crude drawing of all time. Like if you took a random person off the street, gave them construction paper, it would be what the spirit of Christmas looks like.
It's 1995, and Matt Stone and Trey Parker are struggling to break into the film industry.
But then this guy who we knew at Fox had seen some of the animations we'd done in college.
Brian
and said,
Graydon.
Yeah, Brian Graydon. He said, make me a Christmas card I can send out to my friends.
With a $1,000 budget and some scissors, Stone and Parker go to work.
Then he got it, and he had a list of like 400 friends.
Yeah.
And then he's like, you guys, I can't send this out.
God damn it, you stepped on my foot, you pig.
But then he decided there was 30 or 40 friends that he thought were cool enough that wouldn't get offended.
As it turns out, one of those cool friends had some other cool friends.
And I call it the first viral video because George Clooney made 300 copies and gave it to everyone in Hollywood and everyone saw it. There was no internet, but it became viral essentially. And I had just started working at Comedy Central, which was a brand new network.
My first encounter with South Park, a friend had a bootleg VHS of that Christmas episode that Matt and Trey had done, and he put it on and we watched it one night and we played it over and over and over.
With VHS copies of Spirit of Christmas circulating around Hollywood, Comedy Central takes notice.
We just kept hearing Debbie Liebling's name because we had like common friends.
So I called them and they came and met with me, and they had little plastic bags of all the characters, and they had thought through past the short. How about if we pay you to write a script? And they said, great, we actually already wrote a script. Kind of waiting and didn't get the script. I called them and I left them a message, and clearly they were living with about 90 people by the sound of the voicemail. And I left it thinking, oh, no one's ever going to call me back.
Hi, it's Debbie Liebling leaving a message for Matt or Trey. Give me a call back. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Matt Stone did eventually call me back and said, oh, hey, yeah. I said, I just wanted to get the script. And he said, yeah, well, it's in our friend Jason's car. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe you can get it out of Jason's car. And Matt said, well, Jason's on his way to Denver. And he doesn't have a phone, so we have to wait till he gets to his mom's, and then we can call him, and then he can mail the script back to us. And I was like, okay, so this is where we're starting from.
Comedy Central eventually gets the script. It's a story about a small town in Colorado, some aliens, and an anal perv.
We tested it. It tested okay. It didn't test through the roof. I think it was a little unusual for people.
women were just mortified when we texted.
So they were like
ready to march out of the focus room. We're sitting there.
So we were kind of
and men were laughing hysterically, and then afterwards said, it wasn't funny.
My boss at the time, Doug Herzog, who was the CEO of Comedy Central, said, not sure, didn't test great, and I thought we were dead.
Creators of South Park don't give up. At Comedy Central, they pushed the network executives to take a gamble on the crude cartoon. With its foul language and irreverent humor.
South Park was a complete one-off. There was never anything like it. I never saw anything like it, heard anything like it, and there was a fearlessness about it that made it very, very bold.
After months of hesitating, Comedy Central agrees to try 6 late-night episodes.
I don't, in hindsight, really know why, but I did threaten to quit, which is really funny when I think about it now, because I had zero leverage. There's no reason my boss couldn't have just said, okay, quit.
We had heard about this TV show that was being created by these guys who had created this crazy Christmas-themed parody. And off the strength of that, these guys got a TV deal, and they created this thing called South Park. And I remember not getting it. I was like, what? Being a more established, grounded critic, I didn't quite appreciate what they were doing. And you're watching this and you're sort of going, Comedy Central's really going to put this on the air?
Everyone was a little afraid of the show. It was outrageous. The night before it aired, Doug Herzog called me up and said, I hope you have a nice suit. And I said, why? And he said, because you're going in front of the Senate hearing committee, not me.
The year is 1997. As Comedy Central gets ready to broadcast South Park, a cartoon about cursing fourth graders, a debate about stronger censorship is coming from on high. President Clinton is urging parents to adopt new microchip technology in their television sets that can censor explicit content.
The V-chip basically is a power to the parents.
South Park's creators had different ideas.
It sort of felt like we were dropping a bomb onto culture.
It's harmless entertainment. That's lie number one.
We knew it was tricky, but I don't think none of us expected the reaction that the world gave us.
It should probably be on even later at night because I think it's completely inappropriate.
You either loved it or you hated it, and I know that, people older than me at the time did not like it.
Disgusting behavior and sense of humor into the package of third-grade animated characters.
But it was so unique and so funny.
There was a ton of backlash. We had right-wing parent groups, we had religious groups, we had political groups, we had schools, we had merchandise being banned at schools.
Friday, the principal of this elementary school sent parents a letter that kids can no longer wear T-shirts displaying the South Park logo or its characters.
Comedy Central has always taken the position and continues to that South Park is not a show for kids.
I don't want to get patriotic, but it was like truly freedom of speech. It was like, here, we're just going to put it out there. And you can agree or disagree, but we're going to put it out there.
I think people that were outraged by the show were afraid. They were afraid of a different voice, and they were afraid of a point of view that didn't agree with their own.
It turns out Comedy Central's gamble pays off, and Matt Stone and Trey Parker realized that stirring up controversy only makes South Park more popular.
And people were so angry, and there were calls coming into the network all night like, how could you do that?
And I think anytime a line was drawn in the sand for Trey and Matt, I think that was one that they wanted to step over.
That was probably the one time they've really lost a battle with the censors.
While controversial, South Park is also wildly successful. Almost overnight, it becomes one of the highest-rated shows on television. Within months, Stone and Parker have a $21 million deal with Paramount Pictures to produce a feature film. It seems that pushing boundaries and breaking rules is the key to their success.
Are there lines that you won't cross?
No. We haven't found one yet.
I started working with them on the feature film, Bigger, Longer, Uncut. Frighteningly, it was the second season of their show, so they were producing the television show in parallel with trying to do a feature film, which at the time I thought was insane and was pretty sure these guys had no idea what they were doing. Sometimes I still think that.
When we set out to make the movie, we went to the first meeting at the studio and they said, well, it's animated, it's going to be rated G. And Matt and Trey were like, no, then there's not going to be a movie.
Tried to talk us out of it, saying how much more money a PG-13 would make, but we were like, we want to push. The only reason to do it is to go to the next level that the TV show can't do it, so that's what we did.
With Paramount, Stone and Parker find their next archenemy, the Motion Picture Association of America.
G, all ages admitted, general audiences. GP, all ages admitted, parental guidance suggested. R, restricted, under 17 requires accompanying parent or adult guardian.
Ultimately, the movie came out and it ended up being about the MPA, motion picture rating, and like about a movie where you can't swear. And it's, I think, the Terrence and Phillip movie in the movie. This movie's filled with naughty language and you can't do that. And obviously, it's a movie with naughty language, and can they do that?
Terrence and Phillip Ashes of Fire has been rated R by the Motion Picture Association of America.
But a lot of that movie was born out of the back and forth between Trey and Matt and the studios. A lot of these notes saying you can't say this, you can't do that, which in entirety really felt like these are arbitrary rules. Who are defining these rules? The two of them pushing back against these rules and going back and forth with executives, studio heads, really set the tone for how they would begin to regard their position.
Nothing funnier or more ironic than what we've gone through in the last 2 years, so that's what we decided to write about.
Dealing with the Motion Picture Association, Stone and Parker begin to sharpen the subversive, rule-breaking humor that will define South Park.
There's a scene where Cartman's mom is putting Cartman to bed, and he's heard rumors about his mom, and other kids have been giving him a shit about, like, what a slut or a whore his mom is.
Yes, hon? If you were in a German Scheiße video, you'd tell me, right?
And I think the original line was about Cartman's mom blowing a horse.
And they said, you can't do that. So we went back and forth, and they wouldn't let us do it, so we put in this German video thing.
Well, is it okay if his mom's in like a German shit video? And the response was, oh, yeah, that's okay. She can be in a German Scheiße video. Okay, well, if we can do that instead of blowing the horse, can we show her getting shit on? Yeah, that should be fine. Okay, can we shit in her mouth? Like, well, I don't think you can. Can we imply that she's getting shit in? I don't even know the grammar on that. How do you shit into someone's mouth? And I think at that point, it's just fun to see how far you can go, because shitting in someone's mouth is fun for some people and deserves to be seen, I guess.
Barely 3 years after their hit show, Trey Parker and Matt Stone are walking the red carpet. The score from their first film is nominated for an Oscar.
With Blaine Canada from South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
No longer scrappy college grads playing with cardboard cutouts. The South Park duo have risen to stardom by being outrageous. And they're only getting started.
Even though the show is known as an envelope-pushing show, I do think there was a lot of craft and care put into what was the funniest version of those things. I mean, an example of that is in Make Love Not Warcraft.
Oh, dude, I just took the biggest crap. Hey, where are you guys?
Admittedly, my daughter and I, our favorite joke from that episode is when Cartman poops on his mom.
Mom, bathroom!
And the original iteration of it was mostly spray, a lot of diarrhea, and all over Cartman's mom's face, open mouth, on her shirt. And I remember Trey seeing it and being disappointed and turning around and being like, why would you shit all over Cartman's mom? Like, that's not really cool. So we took it back and had to talk to the animator of like, the violence of the shit is okay, the spray is okay, but we don't want to shit on her face.
Whoever animated that has had plenty of diarrhea. The rhythm that came out was so spot on, like that's exactly how that would happen, because it's sort of, there was like a trickle, then and It's like, and his mom didn't react at all.
So it's not always just how far you can go. Like there's a lot of care and content in how to shit on someone.
After the success of Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, finding new ways to break the rules of television and censorship becomes the inspiration for episodes. Say, for instance,
So It Hits the Fan was basically to kind of take the power out of the word shit. And in doing so, like any word, if you say it many, many, many times, it starts to sound weird and doesn't really mean anything.
This sucks. Now that shit's out, it isn't fun to say it anymore.
This is a direct shot at kind of the arbitrary numbers that the show would be given of how many shits and f***s and how many donkey raping shit eaters, cum guzzlers, how many naughty words you could say in any given episode.
22-minute episode that included 160 some shits. That's brilliant in itself.
And for everyone's benefit, let's just put a little counter on the bottom of it.
Shit, 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 shit.
And it kind of was very meta in a way, because here it was an episode about saying shit on television, and it takes place on a network, but it's actually us at Comedy Central saying it on our network. I mean, some could say we did a public service by saying, look, see this, it's not so bad. And we said it so many times in this episode, and we're all still here, yay. But there were stories like that probably with every episode. I think the funny thing is when you put a boundary on Trey Parker and Matt Stone, they will find a way to break it far beyond where they first were asking it to go.
Every time they made us cut something, we put in something worse as a big middle finger to them, like, all right, watch this.
The more Trey Parker and Matt Stone invent ways to break the rules, the more their star only seems to rise. But soon, South Park will take on something larger and more formidable than Comedy Central: religion.
And it was one of the few times that I thought, we're done.
By the early 2000s, 4 crudely drawn cartoon boys are a fixture on Wednesday night television. South Park has found its rhythm, satirizing everything and everyone around them.
Yeah, nothing is off limits at South Park.
Check out Hitler. He's the can you hear me now guy.
And I can remember when I would finish a season that I would have to have this little decompression time afterwards before I would see either of my parents. Because you just say whatever crosses your mind, and that's what you're supposed to do.
It's 2001, and up until now, the world has been a playground for South Park's writers. But all that is about to get more complicated.
I actually remember where I was standing when I was talking to them on the phone after 9/11. It was a weird time because the show was more mature at that point, and the audiences expected South Park to respond, probably in some way, and yet how do you respond to something so grave and so upsetting? Yet I think there's an expectation to have a South Park point of view about something like that.
The world actually wants to know what the 4th graders from South Park have to say. Glued to cable television, America comes to terms with the prospect of war. And South Park packs its bags.
Dude, it looks like we're going to Afghanistan.
It was classic Warner Brothers, good guy, bad guy.
Even in the middle of one of the most painful chapters in American history, South Park finds a way to make satire.
And so it ended up being sort of a compliment in a way to what was happening in the world without being insensitive. And I think it's really one of the smartest things they've ever done.
But with America at war and a new enemy in the Middle East, the world has changed. And soon, the limits of South Park's satire will be tested. When a Danish newspaper depicts the Prophet Muhammad, all hell breaks loose.
Kurt Westergaard has been the target of several death threats for his controversial cartoon depiction of the Prophet Muhammad.
It was clear that depicting the Prophet could have deadly consequences. And yet, South Park is the show that everyone expects to break the rules.
It was a real intent of Trey to show Muhammad, to not bow to the fear of it and to put him on television. The network did not want him to do that.
You know, a little background, years before, we'd actually already shown Muhammad.
We are super best friends.
But the times had changed, the tenor, the environment politically had changed, obviously since 9/11.
I remember people telling us when it was happening, they said, you know, you can't show an image of Muhammad. And I was like, I can't? And they said, no, it's against the, you know, it's against the Muslim faith. And I was like, no, I'm not Muslim. I can show Muhammad. Fine, don't worry about it.
It wasn't about showing the Prophet Muhammad. It wasn't about them trying to make any kind of statement. It was really just them trying to push it and see how far they could go.
There were versions of him that were drawn and put in to get approval where he had a football helmet on and you didn't see his face, and they just said that it was Muhammad and he had the same robes that he had on.
Coming, Muhammad!
I mean, the absurd thing, too, is we're talking about a South Park cartoon version of it, which is one more layer removed from reality. It's like, is that circle with 2 circles him or not? We just said that.
Against Comedy Central's wishes, Parker and Stone go ahead with the 2-part episode featuring the Prophet Muhammad. But in a now legendary South Park twist, they create a story within a story, placing the image of Islam's prophet on another famous primetime cartoon, their arch rivals from Fox.
Because that was our first idea, was like, let's just do it all like Family Guy. And then, because they said, we're scared of getting bombed. We said, what if we do the whole show like Family Guy? So that then when the Muslims see it, they'll be like, ooh, it's Family Guy, and they'll bomb that.
What I loved so much about that episode, too, is the fact that Cartman was trying to get, you know, Family Guy taken off the air because they were going to show the Prophet Muhammad on the show. And that's a problem for the Islamic sect. But he was using that like, oh, we can't offend Muslims. But really, Cartman had his own selfish agenda, which was he hates Family Guy and he doesn't want it on TV anymore.
In the end, Comedy Central's fears appear unfounded. The episodes go to air without incident, having failed to rile people up around the prophet. South Park now takes on a new religious adversary, this time one that is almost guaranteed to strike back.
Our number 1 story in the countdown tonight, Crude, Scientology, and South Park.
So, with their episode Trapped in the Closet, the biggest thing was, of course, going after Scientology. They wanted to call out the religion, and the biggest thing was they wanted to call out those who were involved with Scientology.
And what better way to get the public's attention and stir up another controversy than by going after a megastar's controversial religion?
And the biggest thing was they wanted to call out those who were involved with Scientology. So it started with Tom Cruise, and they also wanted to say Tom Cruise was gay. But they knew Standard and Practices would never let them get away with that. So it started evolving to, well, what if we say Tom Cruise is in the closet? And they're like, well, no, that's just a different term for being gay. And they're like, well, what if we just actually put him in the closet, and we literally put him in there?
Mr. Cruz, come out of the closet.
And the lawyers look it over and they're like, no, we're on safe grounds with that.
It's so ridiculous, but it's hilarious.
Hilarious to just about everyone, except Tom Cruise, and the Church of Scientology, which launches a secret probe to dig up dirt on Stone and Parker. But as investigators from the church sift through garbage bins at South Park, it's Tom Cruise and his latest Mission Impossible that proves the most effective weapon.
In his movies, Tom Cruise is used to battling crime lords and alien invaders, but his latest fight finds him facing off with the 4 foul-mouthed cartoon kids from South Park.
Comedy Central was owned by Paramount. Tom Cruise had a deal with Paramount and wouldn't promote his movie that was coming out at the same time unless they pulled the episode.
That's the kind of button pushing that feels more significant than pushing back against, saying shit in an episode. Because that's the kind of thing that can really affect them as Hollywood creative types, because there may be people who don't want to do business with them because Tom Cruise might be mad at them or because Scientology is exerting some sort of pressure.
For the first time in South Park's history, the network caves to the pressure. The episode Trapped in the Closet is pulled from Comedy Central's rotation. But it seems the controversy and attempt to silence the loudest cartoon in Hollywood only backfires. Trapped in the Closet has already gone to air as one of the most popular episodes ever broadcast on television. And months later, South Park is at the Peabody Awards. When the creators are honored with one of the most prestigious awards in media, Trey takes the opportunity to poke fun at the entire premise of the event.
Thank you. When Matt and I first started making South Park, we asked ourselves two questions. What is social responsibility in broadcasting? And how can artists provoke a call for change? Why is that so funny?
The sense that you get from Matt and Trey is that their pushing boundaries isn't a facade. If they see a boundary that they think is bullshit, they're gonna push back against it, even if there's some danger to them in doing so.
Having taken on Scientology and powerful elites in Hollywood, Matt Stone and Trey Parker are about to take things to a new level.
Pushing the envelope, it finally had real-world repercussions.
It felt real and it felt scary. And she came up and held up a sign that just said, FBI is here.
What began as a risky gamble by Comedy Central has grown into one of the most talked about shows on television. By the time South Park reaches its 200th episode, the show's creators have proven beyond any doubt that their formula of breaking every rule and pushing boundaries is working.
Getting to 200 episodes is an accomplishment. There's not that many shows that make it that far. In television, you want to get to 100 episodes because then you're able to be syndicated. That was the kind of that magic number, because then you could start selling it. And that's where the real kind of money comes in, is in syndication.
For a show that owes everything to controversy, what better way to celebrate 200 than by bringing back everyone that's ever caused the show trouble?
There's no way you could make South Park today if you were an unknown group of cartoonists.
Yeah.
No chance.
I always looked at 200 and 201 not as one cohesive story. It was a fight between, once again, the creators and the corporate overlords, the ones who were running the network, and their cash cow, right? South Park has made them a lot of money, so here's this episode, we're gonna do this. We know it's gonna be a fight, so let's extend it into 2 episodes because we're not gonna win this fight this week, but we have a week between. Maybe the crowd gets on our side. Maybe, just like in Cartoon Wars, we bring people together.
Once again, Matt Stone and Trey Parker revisit something they were told not to do, depicting the Prophet.
You've done this town a huge favor, Muhammad.
And we sort of teased it in the first episode, and then we got death threats. Matt and Trey got death threats. Comedy Central got death or potentially even bomb threats. And so we were sitting in the room working on the second half of the episode, and one of our production managers came up and held up a sign that just said, FBI is here. And then the next day when we came in, usually you could just drive into the parking lot, but it was locked down, and you walked up to the office and the placard outside that sort of identified it as South Park was covered, and there were all these men in black suits with like the earpieces, and it felt real and it felt scary.
This time, the episode really does spark a security scare at South Park Studios. And once again, the cartoon finds itself in the spotlight, at the center of a contentious debate.
I guess the network didn't even allow them to show Muhammad or portray a cartoon version, so they had him disguised in a bear suit. I mean, why does it outrage this group so much to have any portrayal?
They crossed the line for the Prophet Muhammad because it got crazy. And when I mean crazy, their lives were threatened.
The creators of South Park are being threatened with possible assassination.
Their addresses were put online and people were going to kill them over this.
So it was a little more tense of an environment, I think, coming off of that. Pushing the envelope, it finally had real-world repercussions, at least mentally, in terms of thinking about health and safety, about what you might be doing.
One of the things that I think I remember most is that Comedy Central was freaked the out, like just freaked. And it went to this thing where, Matt and Trey love to push. And so saying don't do this is only going to make some people want to do it more.
We'd be so hypocritical against our own our own thoughts if we said, okay, well, let's not make fun of them because they might hurt us.
And Comedy Central came back at them saying that they couldn't even say the name Muhammad. And that just sort of exploded the situation.
When they aired the show on the television for everyone to see, they censored the dialogue in the episode.
If there's anything we've all learned, it's that
And it was interesting because a lot of people thought that South Park censored it as some sort of meta commentary on censorship. People were very upset. We were all upset. Like, there was so much time put into Kyle's speech at the end, which was really putting out the idea of why it was important to go ahead and do something like this, that it wasn't just a simple, like, we're going to put it on TV because you say we can't.
Comedy Central doesn't censor The Prophet. South Park had already done that. For the first time in 13 years, they censor Stone and Parker and the moral of their story. But what was bleeped out?
if there's anything we've all learned, it's that terrorizing people works.
And it was all about, I've learned something today, and that's violence works. And look, I can't say all these things. Violence works. And that's what they beeped out, because in a way, it was the most truthful thing ever said on television. Violence works. People get scared. People change. And we saw that firsthand with those episodes.
It was one of the few times that I thought, we're done, because Trey was so pissed that he was like, we're done. I'm not giving them their last episode. I think the words were, them.
After losing a battle with Comedy Central, South Park grapples with another problem. It's getting old. It's beginning to age out of its time.
But yeah, it kind of looked like it was over. There was this, it felt like a band breaking up. It felt like that was what was going to happen.
Since the day she was born, we've been there.
After 20 years, the creators of South Park know that an entire generation of fans have grown up with their humor and watched them get away with almost everything.
You know, I've been with this show since I was 17. I was a freshman in college. And I've changed so much since then, or at least I hope I've changed so much since then.
When the show started, when they first started, I mean, they were just, you know, young 20-somethings creating the show. And so that the show really went through the eyes of usually Stan and Kyle. I mean, and they sort of, I think, represented Trey and Matt.
Their voice was channeled through these kids as like, oh my God, look at this establishment. Yeah, the establishment. We're our own people. And then as time goes on, there's a shift that happens where I think as we all got older is that, you know, Trey became more Randy. Like, we all related more to the parents on some level than the kids.
Now you have two 50-year-old men who are now still creating the show, and so their point of view has evolved. I wouldn't say it's completely changed, but I think it's evolved to what you see now.
After 2 decades of fighting censors and pushing the limits of freedom of speech, South Park is starting to feel old, even as the boys are perennially stuck in 4th grade. And so, after 15 seasons, something unprecedented happens in South Park.
Stan has a birthday. Rarely had they ever shown the characters getting older. And as you get older, you start getting grumpier. Things aren't as great anymore. And then all of a sudden the parents are splitting up, and there's this great shot. They're watching parents fight from the steps.
You do this all the time!
And in a way, it seemed as if it was Matt and Trey fighting. And then all of a sudden, Stan moves away. So you have this splintering of these characters. But it felt real because people go through that.
But something else has changed as well.
In the early years of South Park, when it was still like establishing its great oak-like roots in the pantheon of pop culture, there was still a lot of people that would speak out against the show. For me, that was one of the fun elements of the show. Bill Donahue, I think that's his name, from the Catholic Church. He was another person who railed against South Park, and we ended up cutting him in half with a crawl-like weapon. But yeah, over the years, it became different. Early on, people would people would talk back and people would make their statements about how South Park has crossed the line. They've done too much. I'm not going to go on the Mission Impossible tour junket. Like, do all the things that they could do to influence the outcome, which was pretty futile. And then in the next phase of South Park, it was mostly like people would just remain quiet. Like, we would make jokes about certain people, Kanye West and fish sticks. Do you like fish sticks? And, you know, the responses would be a lot more curt and terse, and there would be a very genteel response.
Shut up and don't fight back. Just take it. That would be my advice to you. Because the minute you try to come back at them, you're never going to be funnier. You're never going to be smarter. You're never going to, like, remotely insult or piss them off. All you're going to do is give them fuel for the fire.
15 years in, you would rip someone a new asshole, and, you know, when asked about it, their response would be, being portrayed on South Park was really one of the highest compliments.
A hot-headed actor named Russell Crowe.
They are very, very funny men, and I wish them Godspeed, and I hope they continue to do what they do.
Really makes it less fun if people aren't hurt by your insults. Like,
is it possible that Matt Stone and Trey Parker are losing the ability to push buttons and make shockwaves? By the end of the 216th episode of South Park, things are looking a little bleak.
And the episode ends, and I remember their contract was up. Not like right then, but it was going to be finished. And people started texting me and asking me if I was okay. Oh my God, is the show over? Do you know anything? I'm like, I don't know anything, but yeah, it kind of looked like it was over. There was this, it felt like a band breaking up, like John Lennon and Paul McCartney walking out on each other and never speaking again.
America has reached a crossroads. What will we do next?
At the height of so-called cancel culture, a new campaign appears on television.
I mean, it was a smart move a couple of years ago that the entire ad campaign for South Park was hashtag cancel South Park, because you just blur that line.
Like, they're not going to quit as long as they're still basically invited to the party, but they're also like, they wouldn't complain at this point if, you know, they said, hey, you don't have to come into work anymore. At this point, it's like, wait, you know, what have they not done?
Political correctness has always been enemy number one at South Park. But times have also changed since the show began, when Debbie Liebling and Comedy Central were in charge. And as always, what happens in the world also happens in South Park.
Principal Victoria is based on me, I believe, or so they have told me. You know, I guess the authority figure from the network who was also guiding them. I was flattered to be included forever until I was overthrown by the PC principal, but the timing was right for that.
Principal Victoria is about to be replaced with a new authority figure, more suited for the present day.
He is, of course, the epitome of PC. He is like the actual figurehead that represents that very, very literally, and is, you know, the main antagonist to the kids and most situations on the show.
All right, listen up. My name is PC Principal. I don't know about you, but frankly, I'm sick and tired of how minority groups are marginalized in today's society.
And I think probably in a lot of ways represents the censors that they have to deal with and the various parenting groups that they fought their entire careers.
After more than a quarter century of pushing boundaries and offending, why has South Park been able to get away with so much?
It's amazing that in, you know, woke nation, that people are getting canceled for things out of context that were said 10 years ago, that you can look back 15 years ago and we got a show with a kid dressed up as Hitler for Halloween and it's still there without, you know, without much concern.
It's Adolf Hitler costume.
Honestly, I don't know how they're able to navigate the current landscape of cancel culture and political correctness other than to say, well, they're South Park.
South Park is resistant to that because we kind of need them, especially today. There's left bullshit, there's right bullshit, and South Park is able to cut through it. You know, they might say they hate liberals and they hate conservatives, I think they just hate the noise that's being made. And they're just like, wait a second, there's actually more than just this. There's not just this one thought, there's not just this, there's nuance.
I think South Park has earned an immunity to cancel culture in a way that very other few things can and have, because they've always played at a certain level and they continue to play there. That's where they come into the game.
Not only is South Park seemingly immune to cancellation, in 2021, Matt Stone and Trey Parker make headlines once again by signing one of the biggest deals in television history with Viacom-CBS.
The deal worth $900 million will also have the flagship South Park series renewed through season 30.
Now more than a quarter century since its scrappy beginnings, South Park is one of the most lucrative and enduring series in TV history.
Parker and Stone released a statement regarding the exciting news, saying, "Comedy Central has been our home for 25 years, and we're really happy that they've made a commitment to us for the next 75 years.
Perhaps their greatest strengths, never getting old and always holding a mirror up to the world around them.
As long as people are stupid, we'll probably be able to have a show. So that's at least another 3 or 4 years, I think.
South Park definitely influenced a generation of comedians, such as myself, to push the envelope and to take more risks. If I felt like I knew how to get to heaven, I wouldn't tell anybody about that shit. It's impacted my comedy in probably more ways than I even know.
I think that generations will continue to find South Park. It remains relevant. It remains funny. The boys remain characters you love spending time with. The town is a place you want to hang out.
All the things that you're talking about in the show, all the things that you're taking these kind of grandiose stances about, whether it's religion,